In the tiny town of Gatlinburg, Tennessee, tucked deep into the Great Smoky Mountains, woodworking has ingrained itself in my family history. It all started when my grandfather's parents created the village craft shop.
We were a member of the Great Smoky Mountains Arts and Craft community. When it first started, there was 6 shops, and my parents were one of the first 6 shops, and my grandparents was another one, and he was a broom maker. And of course, we had the village craft shop, and that's what Daddy called the shop.
My grandfather, Charles Ray Huskey, chipped away at several different woodworking techniques.
I started doing carvings first. The thing about carving is you have to have a God-given talent. You're born with that, then you develop it. But in carving, you have to visualize what you're making before you ever carve it. I could saw out a pattern, and I could make the round off the rough edges and all, and you'd come out like, say if it was a dog or a horse, I could do that. But then when it comes to the fine details, like the muscles, structure, and all of that, I didn't have that.
After spending some time in the woodshop alongside his brothers and father, Charles Ray soon found what he was natural at.
Then later on, I was fascinated by the wood lathe, because you can be very creative there with a wood lathe. And some of your best designs comes out of mistakes that you make when you're turning on a lathe. You say, oops, I wasn't supposed to cut that deep, but you stand back and look at it and say, hey, that looks pretty good. My father, he taught wood shop at the school there for 23 years, and we just always had a woodworking shop, and I grew up there. I started out hauling the shavings out on the weekends, and I was about 12 years old. I started making some little items and putting them in the sales room, and they sold, and just people receiving what I was doing, it encouraged me. So I guess it just became a way of life with me young.
For over 65 years, Charles Ray Huskey has been spinning a raw log with his lathe, creating functional and usable art.
Or reed corks, you might want to call them. I don't have any light ones, but this little carving on top of it is what I call spindle carving. That runs at 3,400 RPMs, and it cuts and burns at the same time, so I come up with that design. And here again, I use some of that bright wood in this here. These are called PBS, peanut butter spreaders. It's unbelievable how many of these I've made. And of course you could use them for other things, but peanut butter spreaders, that's what they are. Now here's that little honey swirl that I make. That's the one I'm telling you about. You dip in there and then you take it on it and you roll the honey off of it like that on your toast. That's a honey swirl.
You may have seen wood turners before, but you probably haven't seen anyone turn like Charles Ray. That's because he uses a technique that not many wood turners implement today.
I'm a scraper. That's the way I was taught. This area, we're all scrapers. We never use the gouge, which is a round nose. I don't have a large one here. I don't use them, so I don't have them, but this is a small one. And you can see that it's concave here, and it's just like that. And when you use this, you cut above center. And what I mean about center is when you're on the lathe and the pieces are spinning here, instead of doing here like this, you bring it up like this and it peels it off the top like you're peeling an apple. Well, with a scraper, you have your chisel rest here. I could probably show you better on the lathe, but what you do here is you hold it below center, and what is actually cutting is this little edge right here on the very top of this chisel. And that's what they call the wire edge. And when you sharpen the tool on the stone over there, it'll leave a burr on top of this chisel right here. And that is actually what cuts. But instead of peeling, it scrapes. You can be more precise by scraping, because the cut is not as aggressive as with a gouge. A gouge has a tendency to pull in, because you're cutting above center, and it has a tendency to grab, the wood to grab, into the wood and accelerate the amount of pressure you're putting into it. Yeah. But with a scraper, though, you can control that. And just by turning as long as I have, I can tell by the feel in my hand how much I need here. I can also listen to the lathe, and I know how much I'm cutting at the time. I could probably shut my eyes and tell you what I'm doing, because I've done it for over 50 years.
Although he wouldn't come out and say this, he is a renowned woodturner who's taught at Airmont School of Arts and Crafts, Brigham Young, and Berea College in Kentucky. Woodworking has become outdated to some, but Charles Ray's work has evolved in order to keep customers turning their heads towards his work.
I like change. I look at it as a challenge. I do most of my designing at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when I wake up, and I'm laying there in the bed, and I think about what I'm going to do the next day, and I try to think about something new to do. I've been making these cutting boards now for a couple of years now, and they've been well received. Sometimes I have a hard time keeping up with them. But I've been using this soft maple. I use some hard maple, most soft maple. And the reason I use soft maple is because this Ambrosia beetle, you see the little holes here? Mm-hmm. They'll drill in there. And then the water gets in there, and that's what causes this discoloration in the wood. Now some of it, I don't know, you can see there's some curl in this. In maple, you got bird's eye, you got soft, you got hard. You've got wormy maple, which would be the Ambrosia maple also. But then you have the curly maple. So if you get the curly maple and the Ambrosia maple in one piece of wood, you've got a lot of character there. And I'm not sure how many of these are actually used. I think they're just used mostly as a decorative item in their kitchen or whatever. But a lot of people serve off of them too. You could serve cheese. We call it a Husky fire. Someone else named it that. But that just sort of become my trademark on these. And of course, I sign it here, and you got this wormy maple wood, and you see the ripple in it, and you see where the Ambrosia maple went in. Now the feet of them are black walnut. This is maple here, but you see the color in the wood, and see the ripples. That's the curl. Wow. And then this is a spalted, and every piece is different. You get one piece out, and it be a lot lighter in color, and then see that one back in there is darker. Some of these are darker. They're all maple. That one right on the very bottom right there, that is a beautiful piece.
Just like the wood to the lathe, Charles Ray's family history and his love of woodworking have intertwined to make his career as a woodturner last for over 65 years.
I lose track of my time because I enjoy what I do. I'm just very thankful that I can still come here and work 3 or 4 hours a day.
And he doesn't seem like he's stopping anytime soon.